Here. So in today's video, we are going to be talking a little bit more about the housing market. We had a discussion earlier today that I thought was pretty good, and I thought it would be a good idea to carry it on and talk about how the inventory is rising and the price is falling. And I found some articles today, one of them in particular, that called this the breaking point. And that somehow, like, the idea of housing has reached maybe a breaking point in which that maybe it'll become more affordable, or that the idea of people being able to get into a house is going to become a more like prevalent idea within the economy. At least this is kind of like the idea that I was getting from the idea of like a breaking point. But I don't think it's necessarily a breaking point as much as maybe considered a churning point. And even at a churning point, I don't think it's going to be what it is that a lot of people are considering as far as like the breaking point inside of the housing market, which would then bring housing down in a dramatic fashion, at least the price of it. So again, when I go over the information that I am looking at, I think more back to the great financial crisis and what caused that major housing debacle, price crash, everything going chaos, markets freezing up. It was a terrible event. And now, really, what was taking place at the time is something that you're not seeing taking place right now. And that is number one, like, regardless of the people who are getting mortgages that shouldn't have gotten them, but there was a major build that was taking place. There was a lot of home building that was happening throughout 2005, 6, 7. There was a lot. And that's not something that we're seeing taking place right now. And so when you consider like what was happening back then, that's a major component to the equation, is to take in the idea that how much is being built right now. And it's not as much as people would like to think it is when they look around their own particular area. Even in Astoria, I see a lot of new construction that is happening. It's commercial buildings that's taken place. Individual residential homes is becoming very, very infrequent to build in a way that you would have seen, say, in the 1980s, in the 1990s. The ability for an individual to acquire a home was a lot easier back then, not just from being able to finance the purchasing of the home itself, but to literally construct the home. The idea of being able to build your own home has pretty much disappeared. There are people who do it, and you'll even find people who may even show up on this channel within the comment section who are doing it right now. I know one guy who's building a house, and it's a big house, and he built the whole thing by himself. He had a roofing company come in and put a roof on it, but he rolled out every sheet, every truss, everything by himself. And it was amazing to watch happen. It took a very long time. It's not something you see happening. So when you think about what was happening, say back in the 80s, where an individual or a family or just people in general had a much better capable way of being able to put a house together that would then give them a place to live and have something of value. Like, if you could put a house together, how much would the house be worth when you were done? It would be worth a lot, right? I mean, in my area, if you built a decent house, it'd be worth $500,000. Even if it was a simply constructed house. Just the fact that it's a dwelling in our area on a piece of property would probably fetch you close to $500,000. Now, if you could do that, and so could everybody else around you, do you really think that the house would sell for $500,000? Of course not. It would sell for the value of the land, plus the value of the material, plus the value of your labor. Because if everybody did it, everybody would be in competition for how much labor they put into it. Everything else would essentially be the same. You'd have your uniqueness to it, whatever, good locations and convenience or something of that nature, but ultimately we would all be sitting in the same position where the construction of the house would be up to our own skills. Well, now we need to trade whatever skills we have for somebody to build that house for us. And those people who are building houses, well, that's becoming less and less. It's going to bigger corporations, being relied upon people who aren't necessarily our friends and family and neighbors who had the skills of building a house, but relying on, again, corporations or companies that are not necessarily in the idea of being there for you as the individual, but just there for the profits of it. I mean, everybody's in it for the profits, right? But when you know the builder, when you know them well, then you are building a partnership for them to use their craftsmanships that they have put the skills that they have acquired throughout their years to work for you in a way that then benefits you in an extreme way, because of building a good quality home can last you for a very long time. That's well worth the money, right? And it's well worth finding the proper person to do that. But if that proper person who's doing that was ma and pa, who's fading away because they can no longer compete, what do you end up with? You end up with a situation in which you have nobody building their own home. You have less people who are knowing the builder personally. You're relying more on the corporations. The houses that are being built have to have a profit margin behind them. So again, it's going towards the wealthy elite, the affluent. It's not being built as far as family dwellings to raise your kids in. See, that was for a working class society. That was one from production and savings. We don't live like that any longer. Things have changed. So when I look at what's happening right now within the housing market, within the economy, with everything that's going on, I think, yeah, this makes a lot of sense when you start applying the Cantillon effect to it. As that new money has poured in, the new money has separated the rich from the poor. Well, the rich are property owners and capitalists. These are the people who sit independently of the state. They're the ones who don't have to rely on a boss or a 9-to-5 job. So these people have had ever-increasing amounts of new money pouring in that has allowed them to ever-increasingly expand their wealth. If the people at the bottom didn't expand along with them, then it takes ever-increasing amounts of effort for them to try and get to where they're at. The more the new money pours in, like it is, the more this problem grows. I know a lot of people get really frustrated with the idea that they are no longer capable of acquiring a house. They look at this and say, this isn't right, this isn't fair, and I totally agree. I agree, it's not right, it's not fair. It's not right that I have to put in as much effort as I do in order to be in a place that is as safe and friendly and comfortable and clean. Right? It's not fair. But it's worth it. And it's worth the work I have to put in to be here. So when I think of what it is that isn't fair, you're right. There's nothing fair about any of this. And so when I look out there and I think to myself, okay, so what is it that people need to do in order to acquire themselves that position to be a property owner, to be the capitalist? It's not easy. Discipline, hard work, dedication, all those things that you heard as a kid that you thought, no big deal, I want to go party. I want to go hang out. Okay? Well, that's the reason why. You take those times of the past where every time you went to the bar, every time you went to the concerts, every time you spent that money at the restaurants, and you were to add that up throughout your entire life, you don't think that you would have the ability to have a down payment for a house? Right? If you had considered what it was that your skills can then provide as a useful experience for people out there and start a business, if you had done that 10 years ago, where would your business be today? Right? If you're not moving in that direction, then you're hoping and wishing and dreaming that somebody else is going to do it for you. And that's very difficult for somebody else to feel as ambitious as they are for themselves, let alone for you, you know? Like, I think about it, most people out there are so frustrated with the way things are going within the government, they forget that they need to do something for themselves instead of complaining about what it is that's not being done. All right. Moving on, we got 10 minutes. Cool. I like doing 10 minutes worth of talk because those of the people who don't like sitting around for an hour get 10 minutes and then we can sit around and have a conversation for a while. We got Larry Bird. I've been watching UE for years and still ain't read the Cantillon effect. The Cantillon essay. It's really good. You really ought to. The Cantillon essay is kind of boring in a lot of ways because he's back there talking about horses and wagons and just kind of stuff. But there is some such incredible understanding of economic forces that he describes even from hundreds of years ago that play out so well. It's like these are things that you are not going to be able to change. It's like the way I look at it, it's like the economic forces that he describes in there is a lot like the laws of nature, like the laws, the forces of gravity or something of that nature. When you start looking at it in this fashion, then it starts becoming a lot easier to understand why it is that the governments behave the way they do, why it is that societies separate the way they do, why it is manufacturing goes where it does. Like all these things all of a sudden aren't needed. You don't need excuses for it. It's an economic force that's happening. The fact that that person over there is going to be able to build the same product that you're doing for a whole lot cheaper, and your friend is going to end up buying it. Now, you may not want him to, and you may want to build the better product, and you may want to make laws that say, hey, we should prevent that from happening so that that piece of item comes in at the same price that I'm making mine for, so that my friend over here will be forced to pay the same price for it. But the moment that you take that law away, your job is gone because the underlying economic force is still there. When you recognize it in this fashion, then you can then move on. You can say, okay, now I know what's going on here. Even if I continue to stay at this job, I know why I have this job. And I understand that if they don't continue to increasingly subsidize or tax or tariff or whatever, then I'm going to lose my position. And if I'm aware of that, then I can take, appropriate actions for that. Start a business that maybe I can take full time if that was to occur. Figure out another position that I can take someplace else that isn't exposed to that sort of thing. Maybe just carry it out and see what happens and go buy a camper at the end of it and go cruise across America. I don't know. But be aware. And that's really what it comes down to. Same thing when it comes to like even being aware of the housing market. When people think, okay, they're going to have this huge crash, I'm thinking to myself, a crash in what? Prices? Like prices have grown so fast, so high over the last few years. It's just incredible to think. And there really hasn't been that many sales. Like home sales have dropped. Like this is one of the lowest home sales on record or whatever it was, right? Like there is nobody buying homes right now. This housing market is slow to an absolute crawl. Well, if it's just crawling along with not a lot of sales taking place, even though there's elevated prices, there's not a lot of people who purchased homes in that. Right? This is like, couldn't tell you what the exact number is, but I'm sure that it's probably pretty mild considering what it was that was taking place during the Great Financial Crisis, where you had a lot of people buying homes. A lot of people were buying multiple homes. This isn't the same situation. If the price comes out on a lot of these homes, it's really going to affect just a handful of people who've purchased over the last few years. And even then, it's not going to affect all of them. It's only going to affect some of them. I guess that really depends on how bad it gets. I mean, it could affect all of them, I guess. It depends on how bad it goes. All right. I travel throughout San Diego County and the number of homes for sale is increasing. Yeah, absolutely. And you're going to find that it's probably going to continue. But even take into consideration what we are experiencing right now with the delivery of the Federal Reserve's credible threat about the lowering of interest rates at the end of next year has already started to produce a situation in which that mortgage rates are coming down. If mortgage rates are beginning to tick down, and if they come down not even significantly, but come down to a particular number, I forget what it was. I think Mike Zuber has called it out a couple of times that once it hits a particular interest rate, it's like the buyers come flooding in. And every day that passes where you have low transactions in the housing market, what you are doing is building up demand. It's pent up demand. And so even though it's not there present, people go like, well, there's no buyers. Demand just must not be there. Demand just doesn't exist. No, that's not true at all, right? Demand is just pent up and it's frustrated and it's sitting back there a little ways, but there's plenty of it and it's growing. And so when we see the price comes down and you see that interest rate hits that particular number, they're going to flood in, right? They're going to flood in from every direction. Now, it may not be the case if we're running through recessionary pressures and unemployment's rising dramatically or something of that nature. But if that's the case, then I could not imagine if there was a recessionary expectation or even like evidence of it happening in 4 6 months when the idea of interest rate cuts were to be taking place, right? And we have that kind of going on. I would not imagine interest rates coming down on the mortgages. What I mean is, right? They might come down on the Fed funds rate, but that doesn't really matter because even when the Fed cuts rates, you see mortgage rates go up. It's the delivery of the information, right? It's the delivery of the message. It's the communication that they're delivering. And if they're delivering one with the recessionary pressure to it, you're most likely going to see that there's going to be interest rates rising as the demand from the people to and I'm not talking about the Fed funds rate, I'm talking about like mortgage rates, because the demand from the investor is going to say, hey, I want more return on my capital if I'm going to be putting it into mortgages, considering there's a recession coming. Now, the only thing that would throw that off is if the Federal Reserve moved into a quantitative easing and started buying mortgage-backed securities, right? Or even possibly backed off on the idea of rolling off the mortgage-backed securities might add a little bit of stimulus to the idea of it. But really, it would take the Federal Reserve stepping in with quantitative easing. If that doesn't happen, I mean, that's a big what if, the quantitative easing. Some people call it, they think it's inevitable, whatever, it probably is. But we can't really use that as an actuality because it's not happening yet. Right? What is happening? The Federal Reserve is in quantitative tightening. They're allowing mortgage-backed securities to roll off. They have stalled out on their interest rates with the promise of cutting them in the future. Mortgage rates are now starting to tick down, most likely based on that idea. And that if there isn't a recessionary pressure that is delivered with the message going forward, then you're probably going to see those mortgage rates continue to tick down. Right? If they deliver this message with anything other than a everything's cool, right, kind of attitude, as far as when they actually cut rates, if they deliver that interest rate cut with a fear or something of that nature to it, you're going to find that the market's reaction to that is going to be quite opposite of what everybody else was expecting. All right. As they expect the Federal Reserve cutting rates and seeing interest rates come down, if they deliver that with a fearful message, then you're going to see rates rise. Not on the Fed funds level, but on mortgages, on everything else out there, again, because of the fear that comes with it. If they deliver that rate cut with the message that everything is cool, then you'll probably see the interest rates continue to come down. It's weird to think that they can do the same action. It doesn't matter what the action is. That's what's crazy about this. It doesn't matter what the action is. It's about how they deliver that action, how they deliver it to the markets, what people's expectations are from it. And that is then what will guide the interest rates or move the interest rates in the direction in which that they are looking for. We've broken this down many times on my channel. Member only live streams that we have done has broken this stuff down in its, I don't know, in its tiniest, like, every fine tooth comb, looking over each one of those speeches in order to deliver that message to you. We have done it in the member only live streams. And even just recently with Philip Jefferson's speech, and if you haven't read that yet, go to the Federal Reserve speeches and go check out Philip Jefferson's speech from last week. Excellent, right? It's all about monetary policy and how it is that the Federal Reserve uses their words. Not one bit in that speech about interest rate adjustments. Again, it was talking about monetary policy, how to conduct monetary policy, and it's all about how they use their words, and not one mention of interest rate adjustments. As far as being the tool, they do talk about interest rate adjustments, but not in the way that you think they do. Right? Once we get this, once you get it, it's kind of easy to see. It's like you can't really like once you recognize it, and once you see it, once you're aware of it, then it's almost like watching two different things taking place at the same time. Right? It's like, okay, so you see like the mainstream media and you see the narrative that's being spoken and you see how everybody is looking at that, right? So you got all these people who are focused in on this, and then you look at the message that was being delivered to that, and you think, okay, so that message that's being delivered right now is going to have a reaction by the markets and by the people out there. And so when you go and you look at that, at the people and what their reaction and their behavior is, now you can see how you're using the communication to make that happen, right? But you have to step back away from it. You can't internalize the information that they are delivering, because the information that they are delivering is the monetary policy that's guiding you. What you have to do is look at it from an outside perspective, right? You have to say, okay, this information that's being delivered, how are the people reacting to it, right? Because the action is going to be the same. It doesn't matter what the action is. All right. Michelle Bowman, big on oh gosh, man, I didn't even, what is it? On the new formulation of supervision. She's delusional. Huh. On de novo formulation, huh? All right. Homeless guy talking about homes. Okay. Carl Cusack. I mean, if you're talking about me, you don't have to be here, bro. You can go find some other place to be. All right. The Fed communication in an inter-Fed and media kind of duality, using language and legalese to mitigate their liability. Yeah, and that's really what it's kind of crazy, because like the Fed speak is very difficult to understand. It's almost like speaking its own language. And what I found interesting is that I was like, man, why do they do this? Why do they talk in this way? And the more I started reading through and learning this language, learning the communication, I started realizing, wow, they're hiding it in plain sight. Just people can't recognize it because of the language that they use, unless you are in tune to it. It's like literal. Way that I described it was, I understood the definitions of the words, but it was as if they were flying past me and I couldn't retain anything because I couldn't understand why they were using them the way they were using them. The more I figured it out, the more I realized, okay, well, it starts making a lot of sense. Like the when they start using, when they say stuff like securities, the financials, bonds, debt, right? They're talking about the same thing, right? Even when they're talking like, you hear people talking about financial assets, right? They're all talking about the same thing. There's different versions of this, whether or not it came from a corporation, a municipality, a country, whatever. They're all talking about the same thing. Well, this is very difficult for a lot of people because they hear these different things, or maybe even heard it said multiple times throughout like a particular like conversation or interview, and they think that the topic has changed, or maybe the topic did change and they didn't realize it because they're using all this type of lingo in order to describe what it is that they're seeing and feeling out there within the economy. Now, somebody who understands it, who recognizes it, well, it's really easy. It's just like, it's like, okay, I totally get what they're talking about. But if you're new to it and trying to figure it out, that jargon is hard. It is hard to figure out. And so the Federal Reserve knows it. In fact, Greenspan like used it to his advantage when he was chairman of the Federal Reserve. And so this Fed speak is very difficult. Once you recognize it, once you see it, then it becomes clear. And you're like, okay, so now I understand what they are saying. The problem that I found with myself is that I started talking a lot like they do. Because of how much I was listening and reading, I started using those words, started talking in that same fashion. And then I found people who were saying, dude, man, love your channel, but I don't understand a lot of what it is that you're talking about. And I thought to myself, no, wait a minute. That's not what my channel was about. My channel was about explaining this to people who didn't know what was going on. Right. And then I found, again, it was because of the words that I was using, the way that I was structuring the sentences, people just literally lost the ability to follow along. So this is really where I'm trying to again like step back and say, okay, there's a certain level of understanding that you have to have in order to be able to retain a lot of this information, because the stuff that these people are talking about is deep. Like it ain't easy. It's not something that you can just learn overnight. It's not something that you can just casually pick up. You have to make a conscious effort to say, I want to know about this stuff. And you have to dive in. Like, I don't know how many Federal Reserve speeches I have read. When I first started reading them, I didn't understand anything. I didn't understand anything that was being said. I would just like, I'm like, what in the world are these people talking about? I would read something and I'd be like, man, okay. And I'd read it again and I'd be like, oh, maybe this is what they're talking about. I go and research some of the things that they were saying in there. Pretty soon after doing this a lot, I started realizing, man, I could read through these speeches and I don't really have that going on. Like I don't misunderstand or I'm not confused by anything. Like I totally get what they are talking about the entire time. But it took a long time to get there. I mean, even after studying the Federal Reserve, reading like The Creature from Jekyll Island, watching endless amounts of video from Peter Schiff, like all the information that I had ever taken in didn't even come close to when I finally set all that stuff aside and I started diving into it myself. When I was like, what is the Fed funds rate? What is the, what is, and I started typing into the computer, what is this stuff? And every time I typed that in, I would find more things that would confuse me. And I'd be like, man, more stuff to try and figure out. And so years and years and years of doing it, I finally came across the ability, I finally came to the ability, I didn't come across it, I just came to the ability that now when I'm looking at monetary policy, when I'm listening to these people talk, I'm getting it in a much different fashion. And in fact, I'm getting it so well, and I don't mean to brag this up, but I'm getting it so well that now I can see through their BS that they are playing out there on the mainstream media. I can now see the two languages. I can see the one that they are speaking to the people out there to guide their monetary policy, and then the other one that they are communicating to each other with. They are literally speaking to two different people right now. I don't know how many people know that. And I don't even see it like, this is what really gets me is like, I say that I'm the only one who has come across this information and is delivering it out there. And I really do feel that I am the only one out there. And I keep saying that over and over again, hoping that some of these other online economists who I know are superior at this than I am. They've been doing this so much longer. They know this stuff inside and out. But why it is that don't cover this particular information is beyond me. And I wish they would pick it up because they could deliver it in such a better way than I can. I'm just some uneducated economist who is now like feeling like I have no other choice but to continue on delivering the credible threat theory because nobody else will do it. Right? And if it only gets delivered to 223 people who are in a live stream who are catching this, and a few thousand people who might pick it up later as the video goes, gets uploaded, we're going to be the ones who do it. And it was worth it for you guys to get the information, because I know you're going to look back on it and you're going to be like, "Man, remember what that guy said about the Federal Reserve just talking and creating the environment that they were looking for?" Right? You're going to see it more and more, because that's the only tool that they have. The adjustment of the Fed funds rate is no longer the effective tool. All right, thank you so much. We got Chris Six Strings. I love it. Thank you very much for the $5. UE. Now that recession is undeniable, it's undeniable. The Atlanta Fed swung their GDP forecast -3%. It's clear that lie until cornered. I yeah, I mean, let's talk about that again in a couple of weeks. All right, let's see if it's still the case in a few weeks here. Because what we are experiencing now is something that I really think is going to be. It's I don't even know how to quite describe it. It's that shift into that new currency, and I don't know if anybody's really going to recognize why or how it's occurring. A lot of people want to like say, "Hey, I'm going to resist it," and I don't. I think it's futile, right? It's futile. Resistance is futile. It's because it's going to be in the system before you even realize it's happening, and it's going to come in the form of like a benefit to you. Like you're not going to deny it. You're going to accept it with like open arms, because it's going to come in the form of like government pay, stimulus. They're going to figure out a way They're going to figure out a way to produce a consumer. That's the only option, right? And the more I think about what it is that the Federal Reserve has said many times in the past about putting the United States government on an unsustainable debt path, and that they can no longer do this, or they can, but they won't be able to do it for long, or I don't even know how to describe that, because it seems like they just continue to do it. But the Federal Reserve has described the ability to buy that of foreign assets in order to expand their the menu of assets that they buy, and to get their liabilities out there. And when I think about that, and you think about the digital currency application that can be put on that to secure that idea, it only seems to be more evident to me that that's playing out. Like at some point, we're going to see the Federal Reserve operating, and this was brought up the other day, and I think it was a good point and got me thinking about it, that they're going to be operating with two currencies, like a foreign currency and a domestic currency. And the domestic currency can be backed by the U.S. treasuries and all that, and the foreign currency is going to be backed by that of foreign asset debt. And this is a real possibility if you move it into a digital currency. Like, you could even keep the currency in a particular location, just because it simply wouldn't work anywhere else if it was in that digital form. Makes your head spin sometimes thinking about that. All right. I thought you weren't going to get into propaganda. Why do you think we're going to have a new currency, Simon? Why do I think we're going to have a new currency is because of a video that I had done probably about 6 years ago called, um, what was it? Cashless Society. How to have a cashless society? Gosh, I can't think. I don't remember the title to it. But it came from when the Bureau of International Settlements had done an article, had put out like, I think it was like a blog or something, I don't know. But anyway, it was coming from the Bureau of International Settlements, and it was talking about how to take the interest rates into negative territory. And so really, when I think about the digital currencies and the propaganda and all that other stuff that comes along with it, that's not propaganda, that's reality. Like there is stable coins out there. That's not fake. That's real, right? The talk of Fed now transactions is taking place. That's not fake. That's real. And that's not propaganda, right? The central banking digital currencies that are being used around the world, that's like definitely happening, and that's not fake. That's real. So that's not propaganda. Like none of this stuff is propaganda, right? Now, when I think about what it is that the Federal Reserve could do with the two currency thing, right? Now, I'm not trying to spread propaganda. This is something that the Federal Reserve has communicated in the past, right? Having stable coins, this is something that the Federal Reserve had communicated within their own speeches. In fact, there's a speech that was just recently, I should probably go back and read it, from Waller, that I think talks about, this exact thing. Not the topics that I'm bringing up, but digital currencies. So when you think about it in this fashion, I'm not trying to put out information that is false. What I am trying to say is that the Federal Reserve is going to be put in a position in which that they have to create an environment within their policies that allows them to continue to expand their balance sheet without driving the United States into unsustainable debt path. Now, this is something that they have communicated, right? Now, I can put in there the what ifs all day long, but I'm also trying to communicate some of the other things that I've already heard the Federal Reserve say, right? And part of that is the idea of creating a digital currency. When I think about what the IMF said in the Bureau of International Settlements, and again, like I try to use their words against them. Like I'm not trying to come up with things that I am just imagining. I'm trying to use their stuff. Right? So this Bureau of International Settlements blog talked about having a cashless society. You would have to have an e-currency, so that an e-currency within the banking system and cash outside of the banking system. Now, what you do is with the e-currency is that you start applying a negative interest rate to it. People will then want to pull all their money out in cash. You then put a burden on the cash, right? That then says if you're going to withdraw or deposit cash, it's going to be equivalent to that of the negative interest rate that the central bank digital or the e-currency is carrying. So there is no benefit to having the cash. It is actually a burden. So this is how they've gotten out or figured out a way to deal with the fact that they would have an e-currency going into negative interest rates while still having cash in the system that doesn't carry a negative interest rate. But if you participate with the banking system using cash, you will be charged a fee. Right. And again, this is all them saying this stuff, not me. So when I try to think, okay, what is it that I can do in order to protect myself going into the future, I think about the things that they have communicated. And see, they go back and like, man, you remember that? And I'll be like, I don't forget it. Like, I lock that stuff away. And it'll be like, okay, I'm going to use that someday, right? And I'm going to lock that away, and we're not going to mention it again. And then one day here in like 7 years, I'm going to pop back up again, and I'm going to use that, right? Because that's the way I operate. Some people really hate me for it. Other people really like it. But, all right. Beloved, what's up your... Whoa. What's really got you attitude? Oh, we got people going. All right. People cannot buy or sell without accepting the mark of the beast. That's not true. You can buy and sell. You just have to have the right, network. Every dollar issued is a debt. Our money is never hard at any point by design. Yeah, I agree with that. Uneducated Economist, appreciate the sugar-free medicine. I'd rather hear the hard truth than a sugar-coated dream. Hey, well, thank you, Polygon. Well, this is this is the thing. I don't have anything to sell to you guys. Not yet. I want to. I'm trying to create something to sell. I want a course. I want a book. I want something to sell. I don't have anything to sell except for my members only live stream, which costs you $1, right? So, I mean, if there's anything to sell, it's that. It's $1. I hope everybody joins. I would love to have 10,000 members, and that would be so rad, right? But we're up to like, I don't know, 650, 700 at times, and it's a great community. I don't know. if I could find or ask for a better group of people to have as far as a conversation when it comes to breaking down these speeches and understanding it and internalizing it to the point that we know when we are conducting ourselves, we are doing it with confidence. We're doing it because we know what's happening out here. We're not questioning it. We're not questioning what's happening. We're not questioning like what's going to happen next or whatever. It's just like whatever happens next, we're going to have the ability to deal with it because, that's the way we're operating now. It's like I don't know how many other people out there are looking at their life and thinking, okay, am I doing better because of understanding this? Right? Now, when I think about some of the decisions that I've made, some of the things that I have put my money towards, people say, how come you don't buy a nicer car? And I'm thinking, yeah, I should buy a nicer car. It would be nice to have a nicer car. And then I go and I look at how much I have in my, stock and Bitcoin portfolio, and I'm thinking, I could buy a car. I could buy a car anytime I want, right? But instead, I'd rather have that. And so this is the mindset that I have because I want to be the capitalist. I don't want to be on the bottom side of the wedge. I don't want to be the person who's working hard to pay a debt for a luxurious item, right? I want to be the person who's working hard to buy a house. And eventually, when the family is raised, I want to rent that house out. And maybe by the time that happens, I'll have many places to rent out. If that's the position that I can take, I'll probably move that way. It's very difficult in my area to do that. So I start in the capitalist, right? I buy stocks and bonds. This is the way that I've started conducting myself and believing that everybody should be. But then again, who am I to say what you should do? But if everybody did this, I don't think we would have half the issues that we're facing right now. Buy assets to pay for the things you want in life. Infamous NYC, man. Great to see you up in here. Thank you so much for the $2. All right. He thinks capitalists buy stocks and bonds. No, I say being in a capitalistic position. Right? And yeah, capitalists do. Right? Capitalists are people who deploy their capital for a return. That's it. Right? It's pretty simple. Like you can give it any definition you want. I mean, there's people right now who are blaming capitalists and capitalism for the downfalls of what we were experiencing within the economy, and I can't find that existing anyway. Like people are like, it's capitalism's fault, and I'm like, well, I guess you can blame capitalism if it existed, right? But that doesn't exist. There is no capitalism happening. I mean, I don't know where people get off on that. It's just like it simply does not exist. Now, an individual person can be a capitalist, right? But as far as capitalism, no. There is no such thing as that taking place because capitalism means you rise and fall on your own merits. That means there is no too big to fail. There is no bailout. There is no stimulus check. That doesn't happen in a capitalism. No. Right? That happens in socialism. That happens in communism. That's when that happens. Right? So when people say, oh, it's capitalism's fault, and I'm thinking, well, go ahead and blame capitalism all you want, but that doesn't exist because you would have corporations failing and not have a term like too big to fail. All right. Real estate has all the tax breaks, which is why the big boys love it. Stocks beat you up badly with taxes. Yeah, I can agree with that. But you can day trade condos either. But you can't day trade condos either, Neil's never even heard of crystallized osmium. I don't know, like, what the hell is crystallized osmium? I don't know what that stuff is either. I don't know why I would buy it. Like, it doesn't sound smart to me. If I don't know what it is, then how the hell am I going to sell it to somebody else? I know what silver is. All right, is the U.S. truly capitalist? No. Stock market would be worth Half as much, probably. Yeah, probably. All right. Stocks are fast, real estate is slow. Yeah, either one. See, that's just the thing. Like, not everybody is going to be able to get into real estate. Some people just simply don't want to, right? And in that sense, you can still get into real estate by taking the other, position of it and buying into real estate investment trust or an ETF that's exposed to real estate. I am having people call me about my timeshare. I don't own a time. Palladium. Buy crystallized osmium. You guys and that stuff. Okay. I'm Angry Capitalist. I'm reading the biography of Cornelius Vanderbilt, and when he was growing up, being economical and conducting yourself as a capitalist was commonplace, expected and synonymous with being an American. Well, yeah, but that's like, I think it was just kind of nature to like the position that everybody had taken. You got to think we were manufacturing like we were originally like all far like we. How do I say that? Okay, the United States, the population was majority farmers, farming for their own food. It moved into manufacturing powerhouse when the Industrial Revolution hit, and a lot of people went from the farm to the manufacturing position and had these really good manufacturing jobs. Now, if you have that mindset that you're already pretty conservative, because like if you've ever been on a farm or worked a farm or had a farm or even a little hobby farm, you reduce, reuse, repurpose everything. They are like the king of recycling, right? Like, farmers don't buy anything and they reuse everything that they have. So it's already kind of in that mindset to be a saver, to be prepared for harsh times, bad winters, bad seasons, whatever, so that you're not like living in the poorhouse like if, something was to come up. This was a general mindset of the people. And so when you go into manufacturing and all of a sudden you have this really good job and you have this conservative mindset where you're going to be a producer saver for those harsh times and you build up basically a great life because of it, with all the things that you could ever possibly imagine for having a higher standard of living, that uniqueness of that is only temporary. Like, you can't maintain that forever. Like, people probably could have if their mindset was to stay in that farming mindset. Like, if you were to say, okay, well, all the money that I make, I'm not going to really increase my standard of living from that. I'm not going to buy a nicer house. I'm going to stay in this house. I'm not going to buy another car. I'm going to, keep fixing this car. I'm going to take all this money and I'm going to reinvest it back into more production, more savings. And if this was to be the mindset of the people, and like I'm talking to everybody, right? Then you might be able to form an economy that acts and behaves much differently than what would human nature create, which that is the moment that you work hard, acquired some money, enjoy it by increasing your standard of living, buying a nicer car, buying a nicer house, buying nicer clothes. This move into luxury is what starts to separate the rich from the poor. When those prices move up, foreign competition can't help but to come in and domestic manufacturers leave. So now, if we had again just not done that, right, not moved our standard of living up to not enjoy any of the new money, but to reduce, reuse, repurpose, and then take that extra money, whatever extra money it is, right, and move that into production and savings, right, then we wouldn't experience that separation between the rich and the poor. More people would be singing Kumbaya and having a better life and all the other stuff that goes with it. But nobody could really truly enjoy it, because if you did, it would start creating the inequality. And it would start moving domestic manufacturing out and start creating the wedge that we experience. Like, you can't stop it. It's just human nature. Human nature wants to enjoy what they've worked hard for. I mean, like, I can't blame people for it, but, if you don't want to see the effects of it, then you got to go against your nature. You got to go against that and say, I'm not going to enjoy it. I'm not going to go buy a nice new car. Right? And so it's just, it's just the way it is. And that's what's unfortunate about having a system that is continuously going deeper into debt, issuing out new money. Because the new money being poured in on a regular basis is what's creating the inequality, but it never has a chance for equilibrium. Like the rich will not come back down closer to the poor. They only get richer and richer and richer because it's only more and more and more new money coming in that just keeps pushing them higher and higher. So if it ever got to a point where it was this limit, it's like, hey, there's no more money coming in. That's it, right? Well, then the people at the bottom, like there's the rich, and then you got some people who aren't as rich as the others. Those people will start falling away, and eventually the rich people will start to come down as well. But you have to have that new money that's pouring in on a regular basis. It has to stop completely. And then you think about that, when that takes place, the people at the very bottom, they'd be suffering immensely. Like they ain't getting nothing. Right? Like they think they have it bad now. They're no, man, they're right now. They should be singing the happy days, considering what would happen if the new money turned off and all that, depression started to kick in. It would be incredible amount of pain for them. So since they don't beg for that, they beg for quite the opposite, and that is for government to do something. And every time the government does something, they go deeper into debt, and then, right, the wedge just gets deeper and, gets wider and wider and wider. I don't like, you can't stop it. Like, I mean, you could stop it, but the pain and misery is going to be incredible from the experience of it. But, if that's what people want to do, that's cool. I'm down for it. I mean, let's go back to a gold standard. Let's see how long that lasts. I mean, I think that's a great idea. Whatever. I mean, I don't, but whatever. I can handle it. But most people are going to end up suffering in such pain and misery because of it, on the fact that we just simply don't produce enough for ourselves. Like we produce a lot of stuff, but we don't produce enough. We import a hell of a lot more than we export. And by importing more than we export, what we do is import foreign production and export dollars. And we get the dollars by issuing out debt. So we actually have it pretty damn good here where we get to enjoy the production, the real production of real stuff from real people from all over the globe, and we send them a promise backed by more empty promises. Yeah, it's incredible. Like, I mean, it's great for us for now, but like just say it out loud. That ain't gonna last forever, right? All right, I got another super chat. Let's go check that one out. We got Infamous NYC with the $10 thing. $10 again. Thank you so much. Buy dividend stocks, blue chip risk assets, and sell covered calls. Ethereum pays an interest rate. Dollar stable. Coins pay an interest rate. Start a YouTube. All forms of active passive income. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And and I was just kind of thinking about something as we were scrolling here. I have the stock market isn't that great in that sense. Like, yeah, you're taxed a lot on it. But really, when I think about being in a position in which like you take many different avenues, right? Like if you're getting into precious metals, like buying silver bullion, you are taking a position that's outside of the third party claim. You're not getting something that's going to pay you rent. It's not going to pay you a dividend. It's the only thing that you have a possibility of is that it's going to go up in price and you'll be able to sell it to somebody else for more than what you paid for it. However, being outside of that third party claim is a very good position to be in, considering that there is a lot of chaos and a lot of uncertainty that happens out there. And if you're sitting with a box of silver somewhere, most likely you have some sort of feeling of peace and calm to you, knowing that you don't have all your money tied up in the bank or in the stock market or retirement or something like that nature. So it's good to have that position. And then also having a position like a 401k. Now, me personally at work, I have my employer is awesome to match my 401k fund contributions with me, right? So if I put in a certain amount, he's going to match up to a certain amount of it. That's free money. Like that is like straight up, like I don't know how else you're gonna double your money as quickly as that, but you can just contribute to a 401k and instantly double your money. That is awesome to have, right? So now I take advantage of that as well. And the idea that you can have a Roth 401 as well, which means that you get taxed on the money going in as opposed to like most 401ks where it's pre-taxed money going in, then you get taxed on the way out. You can do a Roth 401, which then gives you the ability to get taxed on the way in as opposed to on the way back out again. So I have that going as well. So there's like, that's my retirement going on at work. I personally take on a online brokerage stock account where I, actively buy, particular stocks that I found, throughout the years to be like, what I think is a decent position to take. And mainly, I have done well in Coinbase, which was not what I was thinking was going to do well, but, it happened to do very well for me. I also buy into Bitcoin. Now, these are like kind of like the traditional ways of looking at it, but then I also think to myself, I'm buying real estate by just simply living in my house and making the house payments for it for the next few years while I'm raising the family. This is a real estate position that I am taking as well. So I'm in precious metals, I'm in the stock market, I'm got, figuring out a way to get, the contributions match. So there's like essentially free money coming in this fashion, doing these multiple channels from every direction that I can, right? Doing the YouTube channel, doing the day job, doing a side hustle. Like these are all things that actively happening all the time for me. So, you know, like if you can't figure it out, start with something small. Just, everybody can download Cash App and start buying stocks, start buying Bitcoin. Like you can do it with $5. Right? You don't need that much money. I love the lumberjack landlord negotiated his employer pay the max while he invests his percentage self-directed. Yeah. Yeah, and so you know, I don't know, like I don't know how many people really think that way. Like to me, I don't think about things that I can buy in the future. Like I don't think about toys that I can buy. Um, I don't think about places that I can go. I don't think about stuff like that. Okay? Tomorrow, it looks like I'm gonna go test drive, but it looks like I'm gonna be picking up a vehicle tomorrow. I can't wait to tell you the story behind it too. I just don't want to jinx it, so I'm not telling you guys quite about it yet. But I can go anywhere I want, and I can buy. I mean, I can't buy anything I want, but I can kind of buy whatever I want. Yeah, and I don't really think about things that I can do like that. I mean, when I need to go somewhere, I go there. I've traveled more in the last 3 years than I've traveled in the last 20, right? Like, I be going to these speaking engagements has taken me all over the place. I can't remember the last time I was on a plane prior to 3 years ago. Right? But all of a sudden now I'm flying like I've done more flights in the last, 3 years than I can even think of right now. It's just like it's blowing me away how many. And again, like I mean, I don't know if it's just the different mindset that I've had or changed from or something like that, but I really don't think about where it is that I could go to put my money as far as buying things like toys. I go to think about where I can put my money to buy things like Bitcoin or stocks or invest in back into the house or something of that nature. Like stuff. Yeah, all the stuff is there. I can go buy whatever I want right now. It's not that important, right? Go anywhere. Yeah. I mean, I go places all the time. Yeah. Like, I don't think about it like that anymore. All right. Once you have money, you don't want to waste it on silly stuff. You realize it's a job to make more money. Yep. Not turn into food, drinks, trips, etc. That's short-sighted. Yeah, I kind of agree with I not kind of. I very much agree with you, Carl. And that's where like I think really I enjoy because I do like going out and I mean we live kind of out in the country out here. So, but I do like going and hanging out at the bar, playing pinball, listening to music, drinking a non-alcoholic beer or whatever. But even when I go out and do something like that, I mean, my wife and I, we might spend $20, $25. Like, we don't party all night long. We don't eat a bunch of food. We don't do any of that stuff. So we're like pretty cheap dates, like we just go out and just like, eat a plate of fries or whatever, play some pinball, listen to some music. And then, again, because we don't drink. So it's just like, consuming a bunch of alcohol and paying for that isn't like really, isn't really in our, isn't really in us. All right. The cutting of government spending could hurt the economy, right? Seems removing that money from circulation is a bad idea. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. We'll see what ends up happening. I stopped drinking in 2020. You also don't drink? No, Dave, I haven't drank anything in almost 10 years, 9 years, something like that. I don't even know. I really don't remember the last drink that I had. Um, I just remember being really frustrated at the time in life. Like, a lot of people have heard my story, but if you haven't heard it, it's like I was sitting in a position where I was about ready to lose just about everything I had. Right? My family was frustrated with me. I had like, my vehicles were all broken down. I was like, I don't even know, 20 something $1,000 in debt on credit cards and other things. I had a limited amount of income coming in. My wife was pregnant, right? It was like all the stuff. And I was just like, I suck. I just like, I'm 40 years old and I just suck. I mean, I was a nice guy. Don't get me wrong. Like, people like me. And it was fun to hang out with, and we joke around and hang out at the campfire, whatever. Like, I was a good guy in that sense. Like, I didn't hurt anybody or steal or do anything like that, and like none of that stuff. But I wasn't doing anything appropriate, right? I wasn't chasing excellence by any means. I would chase pleasure for 8 hours a day, or I'm sorry, chase excellence for 8 hours a day at work, and then just completely undo every bit of it the moment that I got off of work. I would just immediately start chasing pleasure and just completely undo all the excellence that I would chase all day. And then one day I said, I'm not going to do it anymore. Right? My wife and I, we had plenty of problems. We would fight and yell and just get mad at each other, and nothing was going right. Everything was wrong. Everything was wrong. Nothing, like, I can't think of a single thing that was going right. And I was just like, okay, well, screw it. I'm never gonna drink again. I gave it up. Like, I said it to myself a bunch of times, but then one day I just actually did it. I just like gave it up. And I remember I was really mad about it. Like, I think that's how I did it. I think I just got really angry and just got really, like, kind of power mad and just like stubborn, like out of sheer stubbornness. I quit drinking. And the problem with doing that is that it's like really going to unleash a bunch of mental issues, right? Because ultimately you're drinking because you're covering up mental issues. I don't know how many people realize that. Like, the alcohol is addictive. And so if you start at a young age and you do it, you're probably going to get addicted. But the reason why you keep doing it is because you're covering up issues. So when you give up drinking, those issues start really coming up, and that's a pain. That's hard to deal with, right? Because now you don't even have, like, you're kind of bummed out because you're not drinking, and then you have all these issues, and you're realizing how crappy your life really is, and you got to deal with all that stuff at once, right? So it's just like, like, it's no wonder why people just don't give it up, right? It's because it's so hard. It's just like, everything about it is just like it's a nightmare of a scenario. And it's really difficult because you don't understand how to live, and you don't understand what it is that you're supposed to do with your life. And you're just like, it's just complete confusion. And you really think that you're all alone, right? And that's why, like, for me, it was easier to deal with a lot of the a lot of the mental issues that were coming up because my wife was going through Alcoholics Anonymous at the same time, right? So she had gone to rehabilitation, like did 30 days in house. She got out. She was heavily into the AA meetings and going to them. I didn't go, right? I didn't go to the rooms. but I got a lot of residual from her. So like as we were having conversations and stuff, she would be telling me about certain things that she was learning, and then I was able to use a lot of that stuff for myself. Even though I didn't go to AA, I got a lot from it just because she was going and she was really into it. So as that started to take place and you start becoming more aware of what it is that you were thinking and how it is that you were feeling about stuff, and you realize, man, okay, so I was covering all this stuff up, and you start to deal with that, and you start to learn to understand why it is that your thinking process was kind of messed up or whatever, and you start thinking properly. Well, pretty soon, like, the chasing of pleasure is the painful experience. Like, you recognize it. Like, every time I got drunk, I would be hungover. Every time I would go off and have a good time, I would be broke. Every time I would go and consume all that food thinking that it was really tasting good, I would feel bloated and sick. Okay? Because I ate, half a pepperoni pizza or something. And once you start recognizing, like, it was just like, damn, man, I like all these pleasurable experiences that I absolutely loved as a younger person, getting these thrills of these experiences and, whatever that came from it. Well, all those things were all the reasons why I'm sitting in pain. Why it is that I'm dragging, like, the family around with me in pain. So then I started thinking about it more. I was just like, okay, so what can I do that's going to change, right? What's going to change about my life if I'm going to stop pursuing all these pleasurable experiences? So I started pursuing more at work, saying, okay, well, do as many transactions as you can at work. Start figuring out other things in life that you can do that are going to bring, usefulness to other people. Start chasing excellence. When I started moving towards chasing excellence, I started realizing, I was like, okay, wait a minute here. I'm actually enjoying this in a heightened manner. Not like this is work. This is like fun. This is like, it's not fun because it's work, but I'm getting like a charge off of it. I realize, oh, wait a minute. This is how I'm getting my dopamine now. See, before it was, the next thrill, the next event, the next whatever, the next experience that I was going for, that pleasurable thing. Well, I don't need that anymore. Now I can chase excellence and get that same feeling from it. Like I get the excitement, the thrill, the energy by going and doing that. And I was just like, okay, cool. So now I'm starting to recognize if I go and I chase a pleasurable experience, I can just automatically assume that I'm probably going to experience pain. Whether it comes in the form of a debt that I have to pay, or somebody's probably going to be, pissed off or something of that nature, there's going to be some sort of pain that comes from that. But if I pursue the excellence on a regular basis, essentially the natural consequence, which isn't a consequence at all, is the pleasurable experience. You actually feel good for it. You're rewarded by that. Okay? The more you do that, the more you realize that, man, you can just sit there and be in that energy all the time, right? Or try to push yourself towards that energy all the time. And whether it's done through volunteering or just pursuing the benefit of yourself and your family, whatever it is that you're doing out there, if you're doing it with the intent that you're going to be useful and helpful, it's almost as if the universe can't help but to reward you for that. It's almost like, an easy cheat code, right? Be useful, be helpful, right? Be generous, be mindful, be present. All these things that you've heard throughout your life. Yeah, you sit in that energy and you think, man, this is the way you chase excellence. And by doing this, you'll get rewarded for it. But the moment that I set that down and I go and pursue something else that's going to be pleasurable, I can just anticipate that I'm probably going to experience some pain. Right? Be hungover, be bloated, be broke. All right. Chris Six Strings. I love the name. All right. Thank you for the $5. We are brainwashed to believe that we are not rich, we are poor. Health, safety, and ability to enjoy life are priceless. No, I totally agree, and I think rich-poor mindset. I think that's really, it is just a mindset when it comes to that. Don't get me wrong. If you're broke as hell, that's difficult, and it's really the the understanding of the position that you are in and why it is that you are there. Like, okay, so how long ago? It wasn't even that long ago. 6 years ago, I had no vehicle to drive. Like, there was four adults living in a house. We had one vehicle to get everybody to work, right? Luckily, Sarah, my wife, she lived close to work. Other people, like, could run other people to work on the way by, stuff like that. We have four people living in a house, one car. And I thought to myself, man, if we have a flat tire, we're screwed, right? If we wake up in the morning and that tire's flat, like, we are screwed. Because all four of us were relying on that thing getting to work. That's a pretty stressful moment, right? To handle that. And if you are in a position in which a flat tire is going to prevent you from going to work, and not getting to work means you may get fired, and getting fired means you're not going to be in this apartment, and there's like this whole life draining event that could actually come from the fact that you just have this flat tire. Now, set that aside for a second. You think about a guy who's trying to work out a $500 million deal. He's got all these people's lives depending on him to get this deal done. It is incredibly difficult. There is so kinds of negotiation that has to happen. He has to be very delicate in what it is that he is doing in order to get this thing done, and the stress level is absolutely intense. These people are experiencing a stress level that is very similar to the heightened stress level. Right? Just because this person's working on a $500 million deal and this person's dealing with a flat tire doesn't change the stress, right? They're both experiencing that same thing. Now, I think the difference is that the stress of a flat tire probably doesn't bother the guy with $500 million, as he just gets on the phone and takes care of business and moves on about his day because he has the money to do it, right? But again, that's just the condition of his life. He has plenty of other stresses that he has to deal with. He probably would love to have the stress of a flat tire being the only stress in his life, right? But yet this person is probably going to deteriorate their life by having this particular event happen. Right? It's all perspective. Rich, food, conveniences, pleasures of life is what Cantillon described as wealth. What is rich, right? Is rich the ability to do whatever you want without consequence, without thinking about it, without, worry or anything else like that? I mean, I guess. But what is wealth? Wealth is food, conveniences, and pleasures of life. Well, if you have all that, are you just as rich? Like, I mean, people are like, well, you don't have the ability to go anywhere you want. Well, what if I do? What if I do have the ability to go anywhere I want? What if I have the ability to buy things I want? Am I rich? I don't feel rich. I don't think I'm rich, right? I mean, I think I have the ability to pay my bills at will, which is more than a dream for me. And at one time in my life, I would have considered this rich. So maybe to my former self, I am rich, right? Maybe this is what I would have considered rich. This is what the subconscious has delivered to me, or delivered for me to this present moment. Here you are. You're rich now. But I don't feel that way, right? But I have food. I have conveniences. I can do whatever I want, so I must have pleasures, right? The pleasures of life. What else do I need? What other wealth can I have? I can add more stresses and have more conveniences, more food. Right? Like, I don't know what it is. Like, I mean, some people out there, they know exactly what it is. Oh man, if I had $1 million, I would take this trip, buy this car, go this place. Like, they got a whole list. Or they could do it. And I'd be like, whoa, that's awesome, man. I don't know what the hell I would want. I don't want any of that stuff. I quit alcohol October 12th, 2019. But I have been struggling with kratom. Oh, yeah, bro. That's just as hard to quit, but at least I've got my dignity, which the alcohol will take away. Yeah, bro, get off that kratom. Get off everything. I want to get off of, I've tried so many times and I can't, I even have a hard time admitting it, but, even smoking weed, that's got to go, right? I mean, everything's got to go. This coffee, it should go. I shouldn't, no caffeine, No weed, none of the stimulus, none of the depressants, none of the stuff. All those things, right? You get rid of all those things because they're not needed in your life. It's just poisons. There's absolutely no benefit that can come from any of that stuff. Right? And when you start thinking on a higher level, when you start reaching that higher like energy, vibration, feeling, elevation, like I don't even know, like some people say it's like expanding their consciousness to become enlightened or whatever. I don't know what that means, right? Whatever that's supposed to mean. The more I feel that elevated energy within me, the more I want to say that it feels like being high. Like I don't even have to take anything. I can feel naturally high, like feel elevated in that fashion. And I think, dang, like if this is the way that it feels to be like aware, to be conscious, to be enlightened, well, then hell, man, you don't need all that other stuff. Just go to that and you'll be high all the time. Right. And so the more I see it, the more I feel it, and the more I try to move into that kind of like feelings and energy, I realize, man, weed drags me down. Like it literally, like I'll be moving up and I'll be like, man, that feels good. I'm getting there. I'm starting to feel like better about everything going on. I got this energy that people around me are feeling it and all this other stuff. And you smoke a little weed and it drags it down. It's just like, what happened? Like, how come it does that? It's just like, before I was so depressed and hating life and everything about it that I would smoke a little weed. I feel great. Like, I would feel like $1,000,000. I'd be like, no, man, I can take on the world. I'll do anything, man. It was just like, but now it does quite the opposite. And where it was just like, after doing it, I'm like, man, why did I even do this? Why do I feel like it doesn't feel like I don't feel better from it? I feel like I lowered my I moved away from better, Uh, no, is every bum they went to the gym, you only feel better. I push up is always better than one push up is always better than none. Yeah, absolutely. I think I would feel naturally high if I was a millionaire. Well, what's really funny about that, M Rider 777 is that you already have the feeling of being a millionaire within you because any feeling is already there. It's present within you. Right? And it is what's funny about it is that if you could feel that of the energy and have that feeling of being the millionaire, it would almost as if it was like I don't know how else to put it, but like as if there was no other choice but for everything to line up for you to be a millionaire. So to feel like a millionaire is the proper feeling. Like you don't want to feel like anything else. You want to feel like the millionaire. By feeling like the millionaire, the world will then line up to meet your millionaire feeling. Right? It's not like if you have the feeling of what it would be like to be a millionaire, that's not the same. Right? You want to feel like the millionaire. What would the millionaire feel like? If you want to know what that like, think about something that you have in your life that somebody else doesn't, and think about how you have feelings about that thing. Like I am, not to brag, but I am really good at sales at work. I have high numbers. I don't think about going in to be that guy at work. I'm just naturally that dude. Right? I go in there and I just naturally answer the phone as often as I can. I jump up to help the customer as quickly as possible. And I just do that just naturally. Like it's not a conscious effort for me. So because I do it that way, then the natural consequence from that, right? The natural consequence, I always say it's consequences because it's always the flip side of things, right? But the opposite of that is that all these people come and it was like, dude, you have such high numbers or whatever. And it was like, to me, yeah, it was just this natural state of being. I don't think about the numbers. I don't think about getting the next one. I don't think about anything like being that high. I just think, hey, the next one is right there. Go do it right now. The phone's ringing. Pick it up. Right? And this is the way it goes down. I think it's the same way with just about anything. Like even being on stage. Like the last time I was on stage, it felt very natural to be up there. I went up with no rehearsal and no expectation of what it is that I was going to say. And I said, I want to do it like, just let it flow. I want it to flow right through me, right? To just come out in a very natural way without any kind of ideas of what it is that I was going to say. Just do it. And the first time I was on stage, I rehearsed it every single day for like 30 days, all right? Before I went down and I did the presentation. After that, I rehearsed a whole lot less until now. I'm not going to rehearse at all. Like, I know how to do this. I'm going to get up there. I'm going to be very natural and comfortable on stage doing my thing because that's my natural place to be. It wasn't at one time. It is now because I'm the public speaker. I wasn't before, but I am today. Okay. And now to think about the day that I became a public speaker was the day that I put that mic in my hand and I stood on the stage doing a rehearsed presentation so that I could get the job done. Had no recollection of doing it because I was essentially went into flow state and blacked out. Right? After that, I was the public speaker. It only took that one time. Being the YouTuber, I don't think about being a YouTuber, right? I don't think about like how awesome it is to be a YouTuber and all the experience and all the stuff about you. Like, I don't think about it. It's just a natural state of being. I'm just this YouTuber guy. Okay. Now, I think about before I was doing YouTube to now, before the idea was very difficult of how many videos can I put out in my, like, how can I possibly put out videos? What am I going to talk about? What is this? All these things, all these worries about, like, what would it be like to be a YouTuber? I'm a YouTuber. I don't think about any of those things. All those things that I had thought about, that I was just like, man, it would take all this stuff to be a YouTuber. Like, I had all these like expectations and anxieties about what it would be like to be a YouTuber, only to find out that right now I don't think about any of that stuff. Right? I don't think about what the next video is going to be. I don't think about how many views I got on the last video. I don't really think about anything. I just do the next video. It's a very natural feeling to just be out here doing YouTube videos, being out on YouTube. It's like, I don't think about it one way or the other. Like, what would it be like to feel like to be a YouTuber? It's just a natural feeling, just being it. Right? And so I think about the day that I started that very first video and I put that very first video out and all those weird feelings about what it would be like to be a YouTuber and having to get, videos done and trying to get them, edited, all this like thoughts of what it would be like to be a YouTuber. I put out that first video, bang, I was a YouTuber. That was it. I just had to put out that first video, unedited, random video that I did from an old iPhone 6 and I used the works Wi-Fi to upload it. Right? And it was that day on, the more I did videos, the more natural it became. And then pretty soon I was just the YouTuber. Okay? You can do the same thing with anything you want in your life. If you want that $1 million, right? Think about what it is that the millionaire would do. Like, you got to have something to generate some money, right? Do you have a business? Do you have a work, that you might get commissions from? How do you expand your operations into something else? Like, if you want to be the millionaire, you got to think like the millionaire thinks. You got to have 5 different ways of getting income, right? I mean, at least, or maybe you can do it with one. I don't know. But, me, I'm trying 5 different ways to doing it. And I find myself slowly stepping my way towards being a millionaire at some point. Like, am I a ways away? Yeah, I'm a long ways away from it. But am I closer than I was 5 years ago? Oh, I am way closer than I was 5 years ago, right? Progress is slow. Maybe it's faster for other people. I don't need it to be going at 1,000,000 miles an hour. I just need to be continuously moving in that direction because that's the feelings that I'm carrying, right? I don't have any other ideas out there other than let's just keep making this thing happen. What are my goals? To achieve more, right? I mean, I don't know what my goal is. My goal, what, $1 million? Nah. My goal is to have a book. My goal is to travel across the country, to do more speaking engagements, to do what I'm doing here. This is it. Like, I'm achieving my goals. Try turning it into 1 million. All right. So Okay, so think about that for just a minute. If you want to turn 20K into $1 million, what would people who, okay, if there was a person out there who could do that, what would they be doing? Right? Would they be investing in the stock market? Would they be investing in a business? Would they, be picking lottery tickets? Like, think about what it is that the millionaire will be doing in order to turn 20K into $1 million. Now, you're going to have to work at that. And granted, like, somebody says, well, why don't you do that? It's like, I don't have that ambition in me. Like, that's not something that, like, even if I was to do it, it would be like, man, what was the point of doing all that? Like somebody else, that they have a goal, that's like that's what their want, their desire, their passion. They want to make that happen. And it was just like, man, that's cool. That's a great thing to do. For me, I want to come out here and make videos. I want to make that, other thing happen. Like I got something else I want to do. And so it's just like, again, everybody's desires. People are like, no, everybody wants $1 million. And I was like, well, everybody may want $1 million, but I don't think everybody wants to go through the effort of getting $1 million if it means denying them ability to be with their family or something. Like, wouldn't you pay $1 million to spend time with your family, as opposed to having $1 million and being able to spend zero time with your family? Like, watch, turn around one day, your kids are teenagers, they hardly even know who you are, and pretty soon they're off and out of the house, and you never really got the experience of any of that. People miss out on that kind of thing all the time because they're chasing wealth, some riches out there. And then they realize, crap, the whole meaning of everything just grew up and left. you know all right, buy the crypto dip before it's too late. How long have we been into this? An hour and a half already. All right, this is very deep. Yeah, well, thank you. Sometimes we do this. Sometimes we get deep into this stuff because, it's serious. All this stuff is real. Like, I'm not out here faking any of it. I'm not trying to pull the wool over your eyes, sell you something that doesn't exist or that's fake or whatever. It's like, that's not me. What you have experienced over the last few years as I built up this channel was literally me going through a transformation, right? And figuring this stuff out. It's like, if I really had it my way, like if I had it the way that I would really want it, I would like to have a 9 to 5 job that covers everything, where I could just go home and watch TV and eat dinner and hang out with my family and not think about anything else. Right? That's really what I would want. And if I had that in my life, I think that would just be like, that would be the biggest reward ever. But unfortunately, that's just not the way it is. Right? So to try and get as close to that as possible while still being able to achieve the things that we need to achieve in order to have this stuff in our lives, I've worked hard to get this, right? To get to this kind of thing. So when I look out there at what it is that people are expecting or what they think is like achieving or successful or something like that, I don't view it anymore from like that. Like, I have my own going on. I have my own position that I want to be in. I have like the life that I want to live, and I don't have some weird desire to have, like, fancy cars and all kinds of, big giant houses or something like that. Like, don't get me wrong, I like big houses, and go in there, it's like, wow, it's a beautiful place, man. It's really nice. Look at the construction here. This is cool. But it's not me. Like, that's not like, I don't feel like that's me. It doesn't feel natural, doesn't feel right. This little house that I live in right now, this is me. This is totally my style right here, right? Straight up. Single level ranch style home, simple, nothing to it, right? Furniture's old, right? Just like, yep, that's me. That's like, that's what I feel comfortable. That's how I grew up. This is me, you know? And as I try to let stuff like that go and try to move into other, higher standard of living, so to speak, or whatever, I just find it, to be cumbersome. I find it to be, costly. I find it to, I, I don't find any pleasure in it. Right? In fact, I find it to be a burden. Bro, I am moving in a minivan. Yeah. All right. Gotta clean that big house. Yeah. CD and savings are guaranteed. Dividends, not so much. Stocks can always go poof for reasons. Right now, cash secured puts in the way. Put is the way and earn 4% interest on cash collateral. So make 2% per week over 100% per year. Earn 4% on cash at the same time. I can see that if you're like, if you got a lot of money, then like, but 4% on $100,000 isn't like what, $4 grand, which is a lot of money. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, shit, I'd like to have $4 grand right now, but it's not like, it's like an insane amount of money. Yeah, but I mean, it's something. If you're not going to do anything else with it, you might as well get that. All right, remodeling will get me a better return on investment all the way around. Even a house is a bit of a liability when if you have a major repair worth it, but it's not always a guaranteed return on investment and it's slow. Yeah, but I mean, as far as like my mindset goes, I needed a place to live, right? And by having this place to live that I know I'm going to be there for at least 10 years, then has like my mind thinking, well, probably in 10 years, most likely it's probably going to gone up in value. So, even though it's like my residence and I don't plan on going anywhere or doing anything with it, at some point it will, move into that kind of position, where I either sell it or rent it. All right, you make 2% per week on the cash. Okay. Right now the stock market has been a little rocky. It's better to be safe now. And see, like, I don't know, like, I'm not that concerned, but then again, I don't really have, like, I mean, I got some of my wealth in there, but not like all of it. So it's to me, like, I'm not concerned about the stock market. I'm not concerned about the housing market. I'm not concerned about precious metals. I'm not concerned about any of these things. I mean, if one goes down, usually something else is doing better. And if that all goes down at the same time, then hell, we're all in the same boat together and it'll probably have just as much purchasing power when everything goes down together as it does now. So, like, I don't stress about anything. I don't live in fear of anything, really. You know. All right. Owning is way better than renting, but some folks think number only go up, which is usually true, but buying one new roof will take your breath away. Yeah, I agree, Carl. I mean, even just the material for replacing a roof can be quite expensive. I mean, luckily for me, I worked construction for 20 years, so it was just like, I can totally do the work myself. But yeah, material can be quite expensive, and repairs, especially if you are not skilled at doing it, can be quite costly, especially in emergency type situations. All right, I just spent 8K on new plumbing. You don't get to add 8K to the price. It's just something you have to do. Let's see here. Would you stock up more on silver than gold if you ever come a time our own cash isn't safe? Um, would you stock up more on silver than gold? Um, yeah, I would probably stock up more on silver than I would gold. And the only reason is because right now the silver to gold ratio is just so out of whack, and so you can get a lot of silver for like you can get a lot of ounces of silver for every ounce of gold that if you were to buy out there. So me personally, I look for things that I know I'm going to be able to easily trade or easily sell. If you have gold coins, like if you have even a 10th ounce gold coin, I mean, you got something that's worth quite a bit of money. I mean, it's even, even if you were to take a little bit of a loss for it, you're probably going to still end up trying to sell it for what, $250, $200 or more. So that little gold coin, now you have to find somebody who's going to give you $200 for it, right? Which isn't too hard. You should be able to find somebody for that, but it's going to be a little bit more difficult than, say, if you had a 1 ounce Silver Eagle that you're trying to sell for $30 or even $25. You know, if you just need some gas and you need to get out of Dodge or whatever, and you just need some quick money, taking a gold coin down to the local bar may or may not be the best idea, right? Somebody might want to steal it from you, you know, whether or not you can even find somebody to buy it. You go down with a silver coin. If somebody steals it from you, hey, you know, you lost a little silver coin, right? It sucks, you know, be bummed out and break your heart, whatever, but it's not the end of the world. And most likely you're going to find somebody who's going to be more willing to give you $25, $30 for a 1 ounce silver eagle than for a, you know, $300 for a 10th ounce gold coin. So to me, like, I just think about like the easiness of it. Like, even like, you know, people say palladium or platinum, and I'm thinking, I don't know, other outside the coin dealer, I can't think of a single person that I know who would be willing to buy the platinum or palladium off of me. Right? Other people, they may have a whole network built up around that. That's cool. Like, but me, I don't have that network around me. And if I wanted to sell a 1 ounce silver coin, I don't care what town I'm in across this country. You put me in any town, I will find somebody within, you know, that town who will give me some money for a 1 ounce silver coin. And so again, this is the way I look at it. Silver is like, I can't think of anything else out there that's better than silver to buy. Like, nothing. I don't care if it's Bitcoin, stocks, in real estate, whatever. I cannot think of a single thing out there that would be better than buying silver. Now, once you have accumulated a chunk of silver and you have it, then it's going to be better to start moving into other things. But silver gets you out of that third party claim. It's the only thing that can do it, too. Right? Everything else is going to be subject to the third party. You have to, you know, expect a phone call, an envelope, the app to turn on, something. Right? But when it comes to having physical silver, it's the only thing that's outside of all that stuff. And it's proved itself for 5,000 years. So there's like, you don't even have to question it. Silver coins take up quite a bit of space if you stack enough. Yeah, I mean, if that's your concern, I think that's a good concern. I think that's a good problem to have. Like, you don't have enough space for all your silver. That is cool. All right, that's cool. All right. Still better built house than any of the new McMansions, so it's worth. I've heard of folks spending 20,000 due to location. I got lucky, I suppose. I wouldn't trust an MF that said he had silver. Huh. We've had 70 months of declining baby diaper and baby formula sales. No one's having children, so who the hell needs a house in the suburbs? Yeah, I kind of agree with that, James. Yeah, I agree with that. No one's having children, so okay, we already read that. Yeah, how do you know it's real? What, the silver? Silver and gold? Test it with tools. E350, I do live in it. Alrighty, guys. This was a lot of fun, but I'm going to call it quits. And I don't know. I'm thinking maybe I'll go and check out the speeches from the Fed. There was one that was just recently done. Like, I think it was by Waller talking about the digital currencies, if I remember right. So digital payment systems, I think, is what they were calling it anyway. But maybe we'll break that speech down or do some other member-only live streams. Trying to come up with another idea to elevate the member-onlys. There's a certain level to it called the collective, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it. It's $50 a month. So I got to put something up there, and I'm thinking that maybe I'll just kind of rehash all the credible threat theory speeches one by one and put it into a playlist and put it up there. So if anybody really wanted to break down the credible threat theory, I'll have it like, you know, literally from beginning to end, each and every single speech broken down in just, you know, like break it down again so that they're all up to date. and maybe they offer that up for sale or something, because I don't have anything to sell. Right? I don't sell anything. The Cantillon essay, right? I guess you can go buy that. There's an affiliate link down in the description, right? Teespring shirts or something of that nature. But I don't have anything to sell, and I really need something to sell. So that's what I'm going to sell for right now, is the collective member-only section of this to promote the credible threat theory in a more refined and described way. I don't know. I'm just babbling now. You guys are awesome. Thank you for being here. Thank you. I read Waller's speech too. I read Waller's speech too. Did you? Yeah, I haven't read it all, but I'm pretty sure that's what he was talking about in there. Okay, where you at, all nighter? Everybody got something to sell. Yeah, sell golden dice. Yeah, I thought about it. Okay, you guys are awesome. Thank you for being here. Thank you all for hitting that like button. Thanks for all the great conversation and all the comments that you guys had in the comment section there. It's really, like, it's just overwhelming sometimes, getting the support that I have from you guys here on this channel. So thank you so much for everything you've ever done for the Uneducated Economist. And I look forward to the next one. Uneducated Economist, you guys let me know. Oops.